The silence was deafening. Michael Hayes stood in the middle of the street, his chest heaving, fists still clenched at his sides. For young men who moments ago had been full of bravado now backed away slowly, eyes wide with shock. The woman they'd been surrounding looked up at him with tears streaming down her face, relief washing over her features. That moment changed everything, not just for them, but for Michael himself. It would ripple through their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today for another real-life story that might just restore your faith in humanity. If you find value in these stories about everyday heroes, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. Now, let's dive deeper into what happened that evening and how a single moment of courage transformed multiple lives. Michael Hayes hadn't planned on being a hero that evening. At 38, his weathered face carried the lines of someone who had weathered too many storms too early in life. His brown hair was starting to gray at the temples, and the perpetual dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent worrying about bills and his daughter's future. 8 years ago, his wife Lisa had died after a brief, brutal battle with cancer, leaving him alone to raise their daughter Emma, who was just 6 at the time. Life as a single dad wasn't what Michael had ever imagined for himself. Before Lisa's death, he'd been a financial advisor with a promising career ahead of him. Afterward, he'd scaled back to part-time work that allowed him more flexibility for Emma's schedule. The fancy downtown office was replaced with a modest desk in their apartment's living room, and business suits gave way to jeans and whatever clean shirt was available. Their 2-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood was modest but warm, filled with photos of Lisa and memories they fought to keep alive. That particular Wednesday had been especially difficult. Emma, now 14, had come home from school upset after being excluded from a birthday party. The teenage drama had triggered a wave of emotions about her mother's absence, and Michael had spent hours sitting on her bed, listening as she cried about how unfair everything was. How other girls had moms to talk to about crushes and clothes and all the complexities of adolescent life. "I know I have you, Dad," she had sobbed, "but sometimes I just need Mom." Those words had pierced his heart like they always did. No matter how hard he tried, and God knows he tried, there would always be that empty space in their lives that he couldn't fill. After Emma had finally fallen asleep, Michael realized they were out of milk for breakfast. Despite his exhaustion, he decided to make a quick run to the corner market 6 blocks away. The night air was cool against his face as he walked, hands shoved deep in his pockets, mind still heavy with his daughter's tears. The street was mostly empty at this hour, illuminated by the yellow glow of street lamps that created pools of light on the sidewalk. Michael had made this walk countless times before, but tonight something felt different. There was tension in the air, like the quiet before a storm. As he rounded the corner near Maple Street, he heard them before he saw them. Young male voices, loud and aggressive, punctuated by a softer, feminine voice that sounded increasingly distressed. Michael's pace quickened instinctively as the scene came into view under the harsh fluorescent light of a bus stop. 4 young men, probably in their early 20s, had formed a loose circle around a woman who appeared to be in her 30s. She was clutching her purse to her chest, her back pressed against the glass wall of the bus shelter. Even from a distance, Michael could see the fear in her rigid posture. "Come on, just give us your number," one of the men was saying, leaning uncomfortably close to her face. "We're being nice here." "I've already said no," the woman replied, her voice steady but strained. "Please just leave me alone." Another man grabbed her wrist. "Don't be like that. We're just trying to be friendly." Michael felt something shift inside him. Later, he would describe it as a strange calm, a clarity that cut through his usual hesitation. As a single parent, he'd learned to avoid unnecessary risks. Emma depended on him entirely. But in that moment, he wasn't thinking about risks. He was thinking about his daughter, and what he would want someone to do if she were the one surrounded and afraid. Without conscious decision, Michael found himself walking directly toward the group. "Hey," he called out, his voice deeper and steadier than he expected. She said no. The young men turned, momentarily surprised by the interruption. The tallest one, wearing a red baseball cap, smirked. "Mind your own business, old man. We're just having a conversation." Michael stepped closer, his heart hammering in his chest but his exterior remarkably calm. "Doesn't look like a conversation to me. It looks like harassment." The woman's eyes met his, a silent plea swimming in them. She was pretty in an understated way, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and glasses that had slipped down her nose in her distress. "Listen, dude," another one of the men said, stepping toward Michael with his chest puffed out. "You don't want to get involved here. Just keep walking." But Michael didn't move. Instead, he positioned himself between the woman and her harassers. "I'm already involved," he said. "And I'm not going anywhere until she's safe." The mood shifted, tension crackling in the air like electricity. The tallest man stepped forward, his face inches from Michael's. "You think you're some kind of hero? There's 4 of us and 1 of you." Michael met his gaze steadily. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just trying to be the kind of man I want my daughter to know I am." Something in his words, or perhaps the quiet dignity with which he delivered them, caused the young man to hesitate. For a beat, no one spoke. Then, almost imperceptibly, the man in the red cap took a step back. That's when another voice cut through the tension. "Everything okay over here?" Michael glanced over to see an older couple had stopped their evening walk and were watching the scene with concern. The man had already pulled out his phone. Realizing they were now outnumbered and being observed, the young men's bravado deflated visibly. The one in the red cap muttered something under his breath, then louder said, "Whatever, man. She's not worth the trouble anyway." And just like that, they backed away, shuffling off down the street with forced laughter and backward glances that attempted to salvage their pride. The street went silent, the kind of heavy silence that follows a near catastrophe. The woman sagged against the bus shelter, relief washing over her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." Michael's hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Do you need me to call someone?" She shook her head, straightening her glasses. "I'm Julia," she said, offering her hand. "And yes, I'm okay now, thanks to you." "Michael," he replied, taking her hand briefly. "Do you live far? I'd be happy to walk with you, just to be safe." Julia hesitated, then nodded. "Just a few blocks. If you're sure you don't mind?" As they walked together through the quiet streets, the tension gradually eased from their shoulders. Julia explained she was a high school English teacher who had stayed late grading papers, missing her usual bus home. Michael told her about Emma and his late-night milk run. "A single dad, huh?" Julia said with a small smile. "That couldn't have been easy."